Well, hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us in today's webinar. For those who don't know me, my name is Samantha Olivier and I'm the Director of Operations at Turn Left Media. And I'm coming to you today from a very cold, wet and rainy Cape Town. But as many of you will know, Turn Left Media is the exclusive media partner for LinkedIn in Sub-Saharan Africa and is now also an alliance partner for LinkedIn's talent solutions. Today, we are going to be talking about the higher education's environment and how it's rapidly evolving. Adult learners are now seeking more flexible learning options than ever before, changing the competitive environment for education marketers as the future of learning has become centered around flexibility and personalization. Brands will become much more crucial for educational institutions, and alternative suppliers are already using new business models. So in this webinar today, we will talk to LinkedIn and industry experts to uncover the trends shaping the industry. We're going to discover how best to use products and tools across LinkedIn to connect to more prospective students, generate a high volume of leads, and look at what existing customers are doing to succeed. So today you are going to walk away from the session with three main points. Firstly, insights, trends, and shifts that LinkedIn see in the higher education vertical. Secondly, what the higher education audience looks like and how they behave across Africa. And lastly, we'll look at discovering new ways to engage and nurture prospects and students, as well as alumni. So we're proud to welcome some amazing speakers today. And I'd first like to introduce our keynote speaker, Tatiana D'Souza, who I recently learned is actually African born. Tatiana lived in Zim for the first 8 years of her life before moving to the UK. She now leads the higher education vertical for LinkedIn Marketing Solutions within the UK and Ireland, and she works across several traditional business schools, hybrid education providers, and accreditation bodies. Now, before we jump into the amazing insights, Tatiana, please tell us what is inspiring you now through something maybe you've heard or seen or read. What is currently making you fired up?
Hi, Sam. Morning. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I'm so pleased to be with you guys this morning. As Sam noted, I am Zimbabwean. And so it's just been really great connecting with the Turn Left Media team prior to this session as well. And hopefully one day we can do an in-person session.
Yes,
but
please.
what is inspiring me at the moment, I have to say, I'm a huge Beyonce fan, and her current album is just so inspiring. It's hugely motivating. It's giving me the energy that I need to enjoy summer. It's telling me not to break my soul and to just really take on life. So yeah, I have to say that's what's inspiring me at the moment.
Oh, I love it, and I couldn't agree more. Awesome. Well, over to you. We're looking forward to hearing from you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, guys, real pleasure to be with you. I know that you guys service across the sub-Saharan Africa and are the #1 partners for that. So really appreciate all of the work that you've been doing on behalf of us. And hopefully you can glean some insights from what I'm about to share. And also please do, of course, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions after, or you just want to maintain a connection. So I'm just going to share my screen. I've tested it before, so it should work well. And then we'll go into a few key insights and trends, really. So it's flashing a little bit. Is that flashing just on my side, guys, or is that something that you are seeing as well? Let me know. Flashing on your side. Okay, let me that's quite thing. So let me just stop. I'll try and share again. And then we will get into it. Perfect. Looks like it's working well. So thank you again for having me. I will really just get straight into the meat of the discussion. What I'm going to cover today is 3 key things. Firstly, I'll go over an industry overview. So just share a little bit of insights around higher education, some of the trends we're seeing, what the landscape really looks like looks like. Then I'll go into a deep dive of higher education on LinkedIn specifically, and why LinkedIn is a really important platform for higher education marketers, as well as some of the insights that we're seeing on key audiences on our platform that are primed for higher education. And then lastly, I'll talk a little bit about brand to demand and really thinking about the full marketing funnel and how that maps to a prospect student buyer journey, and really ensuring that we're aware of the length of the student buyer journey and what content really serves them best along that journey. So looking at the higher education industry, I wanted to really start by looking at LinkedIn's economic graph, to really highlight how the global education ecosystem is thriving. So we now have 810 million plus members on our platform, with over 120,000 schools represented. And these members are working across 58 million companies and together boast over 38,000 skills. And I thought it's really important to ground the discussion in this, because these stats show the importance of education in the professional world, but also highlight really how the future of education is going to become increasingly more skills-based and really integrated across these institutions. So it's not just schools that are, of course, providing the lion's share of education, but really it's about how education is contributing to the wider economy, and also how companies think about education of their staff, upskilling them, and things of the like. But when we go into LinkedIn's, the actual education conversation that's developing on LinkedIn, so this refers to any kind of articles or thought leadership pieces or posts that are around higher education, we can see that member engagement with that type of media across EMEA has grown consistently. And earlier this year in February, it was actually up 32% year over year. What that index also shows is the general trend upwards. And so we can expect engagement around education media to increase even more in future. And what this means is that our 211 million members within the EMEA region are really increasingly more engaged in education content and want to find out more. This is also something that we saw increase significantly through the pandemic period, partially because people had more time, were more active on the platform, were more engaged, but also were really thinking about how to spend some of that time and how to, given the breaks, take the opportunity to invest possibly, or think about investing in themselves through higher education. Not only that, but on our platform, we have over 156,000 education providers within the region, and these are headquartered across over 110 countries. So, there are, I've kind of highlighted the top 10 cities of where these education providers are based. And as I'm sure most of you know and expect, really the UK is home to the top 3 of the 10 cities for education providers, with the number 1 city being in London. But you also can see Johannesburg is there, really representing for the region, with being the 7th largest city across EMEA when it comes to having education providers. Now, that's a little bit about kind of the conversation, how many schools and institutions in higher education that we have represented. But we've also seen that education providers are investing at an increased rate this year compared to 2021. And so this is present across all of the different degrees and types of programs, but it's really showing that competition on our platform is hotter than ever. So investment in masters and PhD are up the most, 64% and 44% respectively, while bachelor and MBA and certificates are up 10 to 15%. So this is a really great sign for the sector overall, really signaling kind of continued growth following the initial disruption that we did see caused by the pandemic. But it does mean that it is even more important for your clients, higher education institutions, to really ensure that their marketing strategy is effective, given the degree of competition that there is on the platform for prospect students. Now, I'm obviously based in UKI, so this statistic is for the UK, but I just thought it worth noting and including anyways, that last year in 2021, over 534,000 undergrad and graduate programs enrollments were influenced by LinkedIn education campaigns. And so just really a nod to the strong influence that LinkedIn does have on higher education enrollments. Now, I'm going to go into a little bit more about higher education on the platform and why LinkedIn is really a key platform for that. I'm just going to check the comments. Sorry, I'm operating multiple screens, so I just want to see if any are coming through. All good, all good. Okay, so let's go into higher education on LinkedIn specifically. So LinkedIn really is the number one professional network. And when we think about higher education, often the reasons why people decide to uptake is, to upskill themselves or to advance in their careers, potentially move on to higher roles, potentially switch sectors, really to advance their professional capabilities and their professional status. And so I wanted to just highlight, I know I spoke earlier about the economic graph, but I did want to highlight with, nearly 810 million members across the world, there is real scale that we're seeing across the globe in multiple different countries. Sorry, my screen has frozen. Let me just see if I can share. Apologies, guys. I'm going to have to stop sharing just for a second, and then I'll do it again. It's amazing. I know that we've been virtually connected over the last 2 years, but there always seems to be some level of disruption when it comes to tech. Okay, give me 1 second, guys. And please feel free to add any comments or thoughts in the chat. I will refer to them at the end. Okay. Really sorry about this. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. I had to close down PowerPoint because it was frozen. And now it's just reloading. I guess the good thing about virtual is sometimes the awkward silences are less awkward than they are in person. The deck is just opening now, and I'll get straight back into it. Perfect. So what I was saying is LinkedIn is really the most important and relevant platform for the higher education industry. So we have 120,000 schools listed on the platform, 64 million plus students and recent college graduates, and over 90% of students and recent graduates are on LinkedIn. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about our members specifically, and how they really matter for your clients' marketing. They are high quality, they're receptive to ads, and they have budget to spend. So when it comes to the mindset of members who show up on our platform, I'll talk a little bit about the quality first point. They are 58% more purposeful in their mindset, and this is layered onto their higher income. They are also 95% more ambitious than those on other platforms, and they really show up with a mindset to improve themselves, whether that be through finding a job or learning about a course or school, or engaging in thoughtful conversations and connecting with like-minded individuals on the platform. Not only do they have a quality mindset, but they are also a lot more receptive to content and ads on our platform compared to other platforms. And this is because LinkedIn really values trust and has built a really trusted environment where ads are super safe and people know that the content that's going to be served to them is going to be relevant, interesting, and also true, which is very different to the general social media landscape. And so given this, our members trust ads 147% more than ads on other platforms and are also 30% more likely to click on an ad. And when put to the test, LinkedIn also proves to drive the most value for brands after members have visited the platform. So we see that there is a 144% increase in budget size for goods on LinkedIn compared to other platforms, and also a 10% higher purchase intent. So really, our members are super important for marketing, for not just higher education marketers, but also across many different verticals because of these three qualities. But when we look to higher education audiences specifically, we can see that key audience engagement has been increasing over time. So there are three key audiences that are represented here. The first is members who have signaled themselves as open to education. The second is executive members, so director and C-suite for that kind of exec ed piece. And the third is those prospect postgrad candidates who only have a bachelor. And what we can see is that member engagement across all of those three audiences has been increasing year over year. So our executive, director, and kind of C-suite are almost 50% more engaged now than they were last year. And our prospect postgrads are almost 2/3 engaged, more than actually 2/3 engaged versus last year. The most impressive one is really those members who are open to education, so interested in it. And this could obviously be across multiple different programs, but really, again, as I mentioned earlier, showing that intent of people to really upskill themselves and learn more. And we can see that engagement has increased 86% year over year. And just for reference, when I say engagement, it's really any activity that happens on the platform. So a like, a comment, a share, and things of that like. Now, we also have done some recent analysis to show that LinkedIn members, compared to non-LinkedIn members, are more likely to start their education journey in the next 2 months. So this just highlights that people are more primed to get started if they are on LinkedIn. And I know this is really important because a number of clients, a number of my clients and your clients are really heavily focused on lead gen, generating a high volume of leads, but also high quality. So I think this is really important to see that LinkedIn members are more primed to convert than non-LinkedIn members. Not only that, but they are also much less likely to be influenced by just cost alone. And this speaks to the point that I said earlier around LinkedIn members generally having more budget and more intent to purchase. So they look at other factors such as online learning, schedule flexibility, reputation, all of which are more important deciding factors for LinkedIn members compared to non-LinkedIn members. And because of this, LinkedIn is really important in a multi-channel strategy. So yes, we're always going to advocate for LinkedIn being a great channel for higher education marketers, but actually LinkedIn is proven to work very well with Google together. And Google is more valuable with LinkedIn than Google alone. So these are some results from a recent anonymized client example, which showed that there was a 58% increase in enrollment between students who had viewed a LinkedIn ad versus those who didn't. Moreover, prospects were 42% more likely to enroll via Google when they had been exposed to a LinkedIn ad. And finally, the client also saw a 12% reduction in cost per click when investing in both kind of organic and paid. But I think this is really interesting and very important for you guys to be mindful of when speaking with your clients, because a lot of the time we often do, unfortunately, the way that our clients are measuring LinkedIn's impact is often by last click. And as we know, there are multiple different touch points, especially in the student buyer journey, which can take, anywhere between 12 to 18 months. And so really highlighting the value that LinkedIn drives and the uplift that it drives when combined as part of a wider multi-channel strategy is going to be really important for you kind of winning on LinkedIn. Now, I wanted to just speak a little bit to the differentiating factor for LinkedIn, which is really our first party data, because it means that your clients, our clients have a competitive advantage in really reaching those members. So, I've spoken to why those members are so great, how they're engaged, they're primed to start education in the next few months. They're interested in a range of different factors when they're deciding. But how do we actually effectively reach those members? And really, the first party data that LinkedIn provides means that you can be super kind of strategic in how you target customers. So, as a marketer, you've got access to kind of really powerful demographic data that the other platforms can't provide. We have over 25 targeting categories, and they're really extensive, really vast. So this first line that you can see is really, job function, seniority, company, education, where they've had. These are really key demographics that we often see higher education marketers leverage as they build campaigns. But also you can even target members based off the different life milestones, such as, a recent promotion or a new job or a work anniversary or them moving to a new city. And so it's really that we not only help customers find the right consumer, but we also help them find the right consumer at the right time, which I think is very critical. And actually, I'm going to speak a little bit about the full funnel and how that relates to the customer buyer journey, and really thinking about brand to demand. Now, I know that you guys will probably, this will resonate with you. Everyone knows brand to demand is best practice, really leveraging the full funnel. I think this is something that we do see consistent challenge with higher education providers being quite focused on the lower end of the funnel. And so what we're doing at the moment around this financial year is really, we've pushed a narrative around kind of applying full funnel, but we also want to really meet our customers where they're at. And so given majority is around that lower funnel, we're trying to shift them up to at least the consideration point to get them to realize that LinkedIn is a really good platform for prospect members to actually decide what school they're going to go to when they're whittling down. But even with that said, what we did is we had a really good study that looked at 24,000 schools across EMEA. And what we found is that leads engage as early as 6 months with content on the platform before they actually become a lead and submit a lead gen form. And so branding efforts are really, really important. And we see video working really well on our platform, much higher engagement. That's kind of in line with the wider trends that we're seeing in digital marketing. But also things like website traffic content, being exposed to other types of brand awareness content early on really, really impact the student buyer journey. So what you can see is kind of, I'll talk through that journey as you see it. So, they might, prior to, even before that 6-month kind of lead, they'll be looking on LinkedIn, they'll be reading the latest news, they'll be connecting with prospects, liking updates, and things of the like. But then up to 6 months before, they are exposed to video content. And then they will start to engage with a company update. And then even as early as 135 days before, so over 4 months, they'll then see some of that website traffic content. They might then go and visit the page of the higher education institution. And then again, within about 10 to 12 days, they're then exposed to more brand awareness content. And all of that happens, within the 6 to 3 month window before they actually, engage, follow the company, click on a lead gen ad, fill out a lead gen form, etc. So I think this is really important for 2 reasons. Firstly, it confirms what we already know. Like I said, that prospect students engage with their chosen university far before really formally expressing their interest. But I think more interestingly, it shows that investment in brand can lead to returns as early as 4 months before generating leads. And I think this is really, really important because often marketers are faced with the challenge of demonstrating a return on brand investment within a similar time frame to demand investment, despite the two really serving distinct purposes. So I think the great thing about this is it just shows how branding efforts are going to impact a prospect's journey much earlier on. And when complemented with lead gen, it can really drive great returns by ensuring a lead is, effectively nurtured through that funnel. Not only that, but frequency is super important. So building a rapport with a member doesn't happen overnight. When we looked at the top 25% of schools within the UK, we found that they engaged with their future students much earlier on. And actually, there were 25 interactions along the journey before them becoming a lead gen form. So I think this really highlights the importance of frequency, building that brand saliency, building the rapport with the member, and sharing content. And I'll speak a little bit about our kind of marketing suite and how that complements the full marketing funnel. And not only that, but within those 25 interactions, there really is a clear kind of emphasis on that upper funnel. So again, this kind of stuff is really important to share with your clients to get them to really understand how key it is to be nurturing prospects through the funnel, to be engaging with them, raising awareness of the brand, helping them through the consideration phase before just hitting them with a lot of demand gen activity. So we saw that actually 2/3 of interactions really happen at the awareness and consideration stage, and about 1/3 of the interactions happened at the lower funnel stage. So this is just reinforcing the importance of branding in driving leads for higher education institutions. And then I'm sure you guys are all aware of this, but I just wanted to reiterate that it's really important to leverage the full suite of products across the marketing funnel, because that's going to overall uplift the performance of the channel. So there are particular ad formats that we see work better across the top in the awareness and consideration phase. Sponsored content, sponsored video is our flagship product, as you guys will know. So that's when we say sponsored content, it's really the ads that run in the feed where most of our members spend most of their time. Then carousel ads and even dynamic ads, those text ads, which are kind of in the top right hand of the platform, really help to drive frequency. Carousel ads, single image ads, really good for that consideration phase when they're narrowing down prospect schools. And then, of course, lead gen forms and message ads, so sponsored messaging, work really well to then convert a prospect, like I've noted, once they have at least been warmed and primed through other parts of the platform. So that really concludes the insights that I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope it's been helpful. I haven't had as much of a chance to interact with the comments, but I'm loving the engagement. And I know some of my colleagues are also on hand. But yeah, really excited to kind of delve into the discussion and have a bit more of a panel discussion around some of these insights.
Oh, Tatiana, thank you so much. Those are some fascinating insights. And I think just based on the comments that I'm seeing coming from the audience, they are just as excited and engaged. So just a huge thank you to you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Now to lead our discussion, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Carla Partner, who is one of the relationship managers at Turnleft Media. Carla, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sam. It's great to be here today. And if I may say, I think very apt that we have an all-female team in the spirit of Women's Month. I'm going to be taking this a little closer and asking our keynote speaker and panelists a few questions that I think we've all been wondering about. But before I do that, a quick round of introductions. Elizabeth Lee Ming heads up marketing at Red and Yellow Creative School of Business. They are renowned for unlocking creative thinking to build brilliant careers in organizations using commercial logic and creative magic. And this has been going on for the last 28 years. Elizabeth is passionate about digital, social, and CRM, and driving thought leadership in customer centricity. She has over 22 years extensive experience in B2B and B2C marketing on both client and agency side. She's worked in South Africa and the UK in a number of blue chip organizations. Elizabeth is a human behavioral scientist at heart. And she is one of the very rare marketing leaders with the unique combination of digital expertise and data-driven performance passion. Her proficiency and demonstrated talent at building and growing customer value through the power of digital and data-driven initiatives combines the art and the science of marketing to deliver real business results to get, keep, and grow clients through profitable, value-based relationships that address client needs. And I simply love the next bit. Her beliefs and values are based on the premise that we live in a relationship economy, and the business that owns the client relationship and masters this is the business that will differentiate and ultimately succeed. Elizabeth, I might have to quote you on that in some of my conversations with my clients.
No problem at all. Hi, everybody.
Welcome. Next, we have Clea Dias. Clea is a seasoned marketing professional with over 13 years of marketing and communication experience. She has spent the last decade building an internationally ranked and recognized education brand. And in her current role of head of marketing and brand at Gibbs Business School, Clea leads the Gibbs brand and marketing activities for the school. She has a particular interest in social media marketing, and under her marketing leadership, Gibbs was featured in the Global LinkedIn Live Best Practice Guide of 2021. Also selected as the first organization in Africa to broadcast live video on LinkedIn in 2020, and then also nominated as a finalist for the LinkedIn Talent Acquisition Awards of 2019. I can just say well done, Clea. Now, Elizabeth and Clea, thank you so much for joining us here today. Unfortunately, you can't escape our LinkedIn tradition. So please, can you tell us something that's not on your LinkedIn profile? Or if you can't do that, perhaps you can tell us something that you're listening to or reading right now. Elizabeth, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Thanks for the intros. Great job, Tatiana, and sharing all those wonderful insights as well. So maybe something that isn't on my LinkedIn profile is that I am a bit of a daredevil kamikaze, and I do love extreme sports. So I snowboard. I like the analogy of throwing myself off the top of a mountain and being able to conquer many more mountains as a bit of an analogy for life.
That is certainly not something that you'd read on people's LinkedIn profiles. Very, very interesting. Clea, what about you?
Hi, Carla. Thank you for having me here today. So I've just started listening to this podcast, and it's presented by a former hostage negotiator from the FBI. His name's Chris Voss. So he's persuaded terrorists, bank robbers, kidnappers to see things his way. So now he's teaching this class about the art of negotiation in business, but also in your personal life. And it's fascinating. It's really interesting.
Thank you, ladies. I'm always inspired by what other people read and watch. And I very often pick up some very valuable tips. So thank you for that. Tatiana, let's start with you. I'm sure that within the scope of LinkedIn, there must be several key topics or trends or themes that are often in the spotlight. What's the key trend in the research that has stood out for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I didn't have time to actually include some of a more forward-thinking view for this session, but I did want to highlight we did a report with Carrington Crisp, which is maybe you guys know of them, but they're kind of a research institution that really focuses on higher education, and they did a report around the future of lifelong education. There were some really key insights that came from that. Firstly, as we all know, COVID accelerated digital adoption. And I think, as Sam referenced at the start, really, when we look to the future, flexibility and personalization is going to really be at the heart of future learning. That one of the insights was also around really the breakdown of borders. And so what we saw and are continuing to see is a lot more hybrid education offerings. During the period of lockdowns, it was really had a quick pivot to online to actually service some of the courses. But now we're seeing that hybrid, and I don't think that's going to go away. So what that means is it's enabling people to really learn from different institutions from across the world. And maybe in future that might drive kind of, less competitiveness from some of the core markets, but I think that will take some time. The other thing is brand is going to be even more important for learning providers as we look to, as the market with all of this kind of digital adoption, flexibility, hybrid offering, that just drives increasing competition. And so it's going to be really important for brands to be able to show why they are unique, why people should join their institution and take up learning through them.
Elizabeth and Claire, can you resonate with these trends? Claire, perhaps you can go first.
Absolutely. I mean, I think since the COVID-19 pandemic, the market's appetite for online and hybrid learning formats has definitely increased. And I think the lockdowns gave people that chance for introspection, really looking at yourself and looking at how you can improve yourself and improve your professional competitiveness. And, once you upskill yourself and you learn new things, that's something that can never get taken away from you. So we as marketers, we're talking to a buyer that's really switched on to this prospect of lifelong learning. So the opportunities for higher education marketers are huge. It really, like you say, Tatiana, it gives us a chance to increase our brand presence, to showcase the relevant skills that our courses are going to give you. So it's really an opportunity for brand building and just to make sure the market gets to know, love, and remember your brand.
Elizabeth, do you want to add anything to this?
Yes, absolutely. So I think to the point that Tatiana was making about hybridity, it's something that we've definitely leaned into at Red and Yellow, and we now offer part-time courses to address that exact need where people are wanting to be able to continue working, but also study, but also get the opportunity to complete an accredited qualification. So in addition to our online short courses, which definitely we saw a bigger demand based on COVID, which we know definitely drove a lot of people wanting to upskill, study, further their not only opportunities at work, but also be able to get the benefit of being able to gain better skills for themselves, which we had quite a bit of time of when you were sitting alone at home and not being able to interact with others. So it became a great way that you could obviously be part of, your teams and still continue to be connected to others. And, we have online qualifications as well, but we found by launching part-time, we give people the opportunity to now study over a 2-year period. So, taking a little bit of that pressure, which we know is consistent and, relentless when you're working, but also that you're still able to get the study and the support that you need towards your preferred advanced diploma.
So you mentioned these part-time short courses. What other fundamental changes have you seen happen within higher education over the last 2 years? And how has this impacted the marketing that you guys do? You can go, Elizabeth.
Sure, no problem. So I think, what was interesting is that there was a recent study that was done. It was a Student Connect study it was about across 10 countries, 2,200 respondents, if I'm not mistaken. And it's so interesting, a lot of what came out of the insights that Tatiana shared, there's also something that came up there. But ones that I wanted to particularly highlight were definitely, in addition to flexible learning and working options, which we see across this theme of hybridity, is also the point around being able to manage your whole wellness. So, your personal, your emotional, your mental wellness, which we know that COVID had a huge impact on. And it's something that we take very seriously at Red and Yellow as well, and not just across our students that are on campus, but in some of the ways for those that are on campus is through smaller classes, career and counselors that are on campus to support our students, and really being able to, with the classes that have a lower ratio of students to lecturers, being able to pick up any issues quite early on, which is quite a big shift. I know when I was of university going age straight out of school, it was quite a shell shock for me moving into this environment where I now became one of 8 or 10,000 students. So it can be quite daunting. And I think those kind of pressures, with youngsters being so much more sensible and sensitized, I think, to what's going on in the world, and with the volume of information that we're exposed to, I think those things like your personal well-being and emotional health become so much more important now, more than ever. And I think it's great that as an institution, we're able to already support our students in that way and provide them with an environment where they are supported before going into the workplace, so that they always know they're part of a network and have that level of comfort before even entering the workforce. So for me, that gives me great pride and passion in the work that we do. And not only that, it provides us with a lot of meaning.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I think it can be very overwhelming for, students that's just graduated, and, especially in a market like South Africa, there's so many challenges if you try to look for a job. Claire, do you want to expand on this from a GIBS point of view?
Yeah, so from a GIBS point of view, during the height of COVID, we had to quickly adapt, to keep education running. And then this resulted in a huge push to what we termed emergency online teaching. But then that led us to kind of accelerate our strategy to create a permanent online business, which we now have. We have a portfolio of permanent online masterclasses and online short courses. So from a marketing point of view, yes, it's expanded our target audience. People are no longer bound by geographical constraints, but it's also improved our pool of competitors. There's many institutions now, local and international, offering very accessible online learning options. So I think what's important here for marketers is that brand differentiation. And also for us, we really focus on outcomes that are contextually relevant to South Africa and Africa. And I think that's something that would be difficult for an international school to replicate.
Tatiana, a question for you. What is the role of higher education and research in adaptive and incremental type of innovation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's one that is kind of widely accepted, that universities are really key and kind of the heart of innovation, partially because of the ecosystems that they build, right? So there's access to knowledge, there's peer-to-peer learning, they're really at the forefront of cutting edge technologies and research and driving some of that innovation. So I think, universities are always going to be core and really important to driving advancements in society and in different fields. I would say that moving, forward, and it's something that we see not just from an innovation perspective, but generally that whole upskilling is really the interaction between institutions like higher education institutions, but also companies, also governments and society, and really everyone taking accountability for how we're going to move forward and how we can advance in certain things. And I think the future of education definitely feels more collaborative, again, in line with that whole lifelong education piece. It's really like institutions thinking about organizations and where are the skills gaps and what are the skills that people need, thinking about innovation, like where is there room for us to innovate and to really disrupt certain industries, working together, like I said, across multiple institutions within business, government and society is really important. So yeah, I guess education institutions always going to be super key. But I do think that, increasing collaboration across different aspects of the way our world works is going to be super important as well to really continue to shift the needle.
Certainly. Elizabeth, in your view, what inhibits the absorption and adoption of technologies in Africa?
So I think at this stage, it's still going to be the old adage around accessibility and unfortunately data costs. I'm sad to say we're still the country and the continent with certainly the country with the highest costs at the moment. So that definitely is an inhibitor. And it's really sad because, I think particularly as you start to look into the future, and we recently held the Metaverse conference where we were able to share a lot of the ideas around what's to come and certainly what the impact is going to be for education alone. And for us, it's a great opportunity to democratize things like access to education, but it's going to require stable connectivity. It's going to require, data costs that are going to be much more affordable and much more accessible. I know when I'm traveling around London or even around the US, I'm always connected to Wi-Fi irrespective of where I am, because it's completely connected and online. We really do live online, which is something I always say, and it's becoming much more prevalent, and it's something that will be driven even more by things like the adoption and movement into Web 3.0. So I think that for me is still one of the biggest barriers, and I really look forward to the moment when our telco providers are in a position where they are able to provide it at a much more democratized and accessible way. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Totally. Claire, it's been historically difficult to assist and empower all instructors to use technology in both mixed and completely online teaching. Have you guys seen a change in the teaching staff's understanding of technology's potential and the diversity of applications, particularly in locations like South Africa?
Yeah, so under emergency remote teaching, everyone had to adapt. There was no space, there was no time for hesitation. But what we've noticed since then has been this general embracing of online teaching models. And not to say that doesn't come without its challenges from a faculty or teaching point of view. There's many more kind of complexities involved in online teaching, and there's a lot more preparation that needs to take place ahead of a lesson. Faculty now need to reconsider their teaching methods, and they need to be aware that what works in a face-to-face learning model can't just be duplicated for online. And yes, sometimes they're pushed out of their comfort zones, but that's okay. And I think it's pushed them to figure out what makes the most sense for their own unique teaching styles. But I would say, though, however, that most faculty, there's still a love for that classroom teaching. There's nothing that can replace that personal interaction from a face-to-face teaching environment.
Absolutely. It's like going to the office and seeing people. I agree. Tatiana, what types of innovation are relevant for long-term competitiveness?
I would say I did see this question, but I feel like I'm not quite enough of an expert to answer that. I'm not kind of at the forefront of innovation and understand it. But I think typically technological innovation is going to be super, super key. I think also not just innovation in the sense of actual product innovation, but also really thinking about, how certain industries work and how they can be disrupted. So we've seen a few models of that over the last maybe 10 or so years with things like Airbnb, which completely shifted the way that people have access to accommodation. Then Uber, Deliveroo. I think those kinds of innovations are also super important just to make sure that we're functioning in an efficient way, because also, their efficiencies are high at the start, but then there's still more to be gained, I would say, particularly with my experience with those companies that I mentioned. So yeah, it's really like product, but also innovation in just people's access to things. And this is me talking from, you know, the Western side of the world, but even like as Elizabeth mentioned, around really people having access to, you know, internet and things of the like in more developing parts of the world is going to be super important. So how can we facilitate and enable that?
Yeah, I suppose accessibility is key in being, you know, competitive.
Exactly.
Elizabeth and Claire, since 2020, you know, and before the pandemic, the status quo of evaluation has changed significantly. And I can see this with my own children and how they are evaluated at school. Can I ask, what steps has your organizations made to address the difficulties posed by exams and testing? And which of these do you believe will be the most fruitful and long-lasting in the future? Claire, maybe you can go first.
Yeah, so I think there's many solutions that can be used for testing. We ourselves have made use of remote proctoring. That's where you monitor students online while they're taking an exam. But frankly, the tech is still mistrusted. It remains a challenge. And I think when it comes to evaluating online learning, there's different types of assessments that need to be used. So there should be a focus on showing the application of the learning. So at GIBS, we've always used this methodology of what we call ALP, which is Action Learning Projects. And that's where students are offered real life scenarios or real life business challenges to tackle based on things that they've learned in class. So I think in the future, solutions like this will continue to be prioritized for online learning.
Mm-hmm. Elizabeth, do you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Tatiana and Carla. I think, you know, to Claire's point, we're definitely having to adapt very rapidly. I think because we offer so many modes of the way people can learn as well, across full-time, across online ed, across online qualifications, and also now with part-time, the offering, you know, we're always looking at opportunities that we can better support not only our students, but also how their work is represented. So we take a blended approach as well, and it is a mix of assessments that then happen through virtual submissions. There are learning outcomes based on the work that needs to be done, and then also through physical in-person assessments as well. So at this stage, it has been hybrid. For our online ed pieces, it has been through virtual assessments. But again, it's something that we're always looking to work on and adapt in a way that can better represent not only the learning outcome of what was undertaken, but certainly also ultimately what that learning path and learning journey was.
Tatiana, because it's Women's Month, I'd like to understand what is the impact of gender in education technology in terms of access to or the use of and the attitudes towards learning outcomes?
Yeah, great question. I think that as with unfortunately everything within society, like women are less advantaged in terms of accessibility, in terms of progressing in their careers and things of the like. And I would say that it's just increasingly important for all types of institutions to make sure that they are over-investing in women having more access to these education systems, you know, having not necessarily unique courses that are tailored for women, but just making sure that women are able to also advance at the same rate as men when it comes to their careers, when it comes to their, you know, their contribution to society by having access. So it's really in line with what we've been saying throughout this around really giving that accessibility to people in a fair way. And I think part of that sometimes does mean, like I said, over-investing in ensuring that there's representation and equal representation of women in courses and upticks. And sometimes if there isn't that, it's adjusting accordingly to make sure that, you know, we're marketing to the right types of people, to make sure that they are increasingly seeing some of these posts. And actually, I've seen that with some of my client base last year, not just focused on gender, but generally diversity in how they are advertising and making sure that they're reaching a diverse audience, because they are interested in getting more people in their institutions that are representing, the world. So gender, race, ethnicity, things of the like.
I suppose, on our continent, we don't particularly have a challenge of, girls not being able to go to school or not allowed to go to school. It's just that overall accessibility that I think, would be a great challenge in Africa and in South Africa. Ladies, I want to ask all of you, but Tatiana, let's just, stick with you. Can you give us 2 to 3 examples of institutions, of people that are getting it right, and what are they doing differently? What makes them stand out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a few institutions, it's fair, I could probably call them out, but we see like London Business School, Oxford Saïd Business School, really also Berlin School of Business and Innovation, were really working on a full funnel approach. And I know it's like marketing 101, but actually in practice in higher education as a sector, we don't see it as often. But I think one thing that works really well for higher education institutions is leveraging the research that they're doing. So leveraging the faculty members that are driving some of this research, providing thought leadership pieces. That type of content is really interesting, and it's what members on our platform really engage in. And it can be served kind of at the top of the funnel, but also in the consideration phase, as I've been referencing. The other thing we see work really well is also promoting events and webinars and things like that. So really just like, I would say, a way that education establishments can really push that brand affinity and build that rapport and trust and position themselves really well in the market is by just leveraging their existing thought leadership and research and innovation that they're already doing, and leveraging their faculty members. Now, I know stereotypically, sometimes faculty members aren't as keen to be on the platform or writing pieces or across social media, but it is a really good and tangible kind of connected way to build trust with your brand.
Yeah. Claire and Elizabeth, is there anyone else that you'd like to add to the list? You can mention your own school.
I'd like to maybe just lean in on a couple of things. The first one is on inclusivity and the point that you're making, and representation really matters. And I think because it is Women's Month and we are an all-female panel, which is wonderful, it's something that certainly I feel very strongly about, but also as a school in terms of representation, it is something extremely important to us. So one of the initiatives that we've done is to bring Le Wagon to South Africa and to our campus in Cape Town. And it's a coding boot camp, because we also believe that to drive these careers of the future and skills of the future, you're going to need much more coding. You're going to need much more, tech that is just going to need to be much more consumer facing and much more integrated into our lives. So one of the great beauties about this launch is that we're looking for more female coders, or people who identify as female, is maybe the correct way to say that. But the beauty about that, it means that we're also able to offer a bursary to someone. So if there is anyone on this webinar who's participating and joining us, if you've done an undergrad degree and it's something that you're keen on doing, definitely get in touch and apply for consideration to be eligible for this bursary. But I think like those initiatives are really important. So again, driving representation is also about making these skill sets available and these programs and courses available that people can take to further their education in this way. And I think the more we encourage and drive that narrative, the better we'll start to see a more equitable representation, should I say, in that space. So that's my soapbox moment around females and around representation, which I feel strongly about. The second question that you asked in terms of what schools are doing. So I think we're very blessed because we are part of a bigger network being part of Honoris, which we've now been part of for 2 years. So I can definitely cite some incredible examples just because I'm exposed to so much of the wonderful work that is done Pan-Africa. And, if I think of some of the work that certainly like Honoris Tunisia and Honoris Mauritius even are doing, stepping into the space of embracing digital, I think it's really exciting. And just being able to work across the network and be able to share a lot of these learnings is great. So if I think of even Mancosa with an iLead Lab, they've also just launched a creative academy for leadership, specifically around women. So these kind of initiatives get me quite excited. And I think, that level of being able to work across the network will help. I also agree with Tatiana. I really enjoy the work that the Berlin School are doing, and also because they are a creative business school, it's quite exciting to see the level of work they're doing. And I think, bringing it into our own stable, it is something that we're also endeavoring to be able to get better at, is to drive a much better and a more full funnel narrative because of all the benefits we know that will provide.
Ladies, we've run out of time, I'm afraid. And it feels as if there's so many more topics and things that we want to discuss. But thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed the time together, and I'm sure everyone has gained some significant insights that they can use in their respective businesses. I think if there are people on the call that has got further questions to the two of you, perhaps they can just send them through to Tone Deaf Media and we can pass them on to you and we can get the answers back. But thank you very much for your time. Back to you, Sam.
Brilliant. Just a huge thank you from my side to this powerhouse of women for all of your valuable contributions. I've certainly learned so much. And thank you too to our attendees for joining us. This webinar will be posted on our Turn Left Media LinkedIn page. And then a last quick punt for our next webinar happening on the 22nd of September, where we're going to be taking a look at LinkedIn's new product roadmap, as well as recent releases, including the new business manager. So don't miss out. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and wishing you a wonderful rest of your week. Cheers. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.